Let's talk about the equipment you're going to need to get started with natural dyeing. First of all, the most essential thing you're going to need is a stock pot, and the next most essential thing you need is something to stir with. And if you have those two things, you can do natural dyeing. You want to make sure that your equipment is dedicated, that you're not going to be using it for cooking, and also that it's non-reactive, meaning that it's not going to react with your mordants and dyes and affect the color of your fabric. So non-reactive would be stainless steel, enamel, and ceramic, glass, and plastic. Of course, not all those you can use on the stovetop. So when you're looking for a stock pot, you'll be either probably finding stainless steel or enamelware. Your classic stock pot, stainless steel stock pot, is going to work great for doing small projects like t-shirts, a couple of onesies maybe. You could probably get about a half a yard of fabric in this. This one says 6 liters. I'm not sure what that converts to in quarts, but anyway, that's what size this is, and I use it for a lot of things. I like to use, for my big batches, when I do yardage, I like to use this 10-quart canner. It's enamel. The one caveat to that is if it chips, then that area is going to get rusty and it could leave marks on your fabric. So you just have to be careful about getting equipment that isn't chipped, and then of course you don't want to drop it. And it holds 10 quarts, well, 10 quart jars. Holds more liquid than that, but I think it's normally sized by how many jars it holds. My stirring spoons are nothing special. They're just an old cracked wooden spoon and literally a stirring stick that my son scraped the bark off of, and it's nice and clean, and it works great. Now, this isn't absolutely essential. You can use measuring spoons, but I highly recommend getting a kitchen scale to measure ingredients with. And this doesn't necessarily have to be dedicated, as long as you keep it clean and you have a measuring bowl to set on top of it and put your ingredients in. Speaking of measuring bowls, I just have this little plastic container that I can set on my scale to measure my ingredients. Okay, so a couple of things that are nice to have would be a colander, and this is really nice for when you're pouring hot liquid out, and this will catch your fabric and you don't have to try to, pour the water but keep the fabric in the pot. And then, oh yeah, tongs are really nice to have, but again, not perfectly essential. They're useful for, manipulating the fabric when it's in the pot, or if you need to move it from from a pot to a bowl or something like that. Just make sure they're not rusty. One more thing as far as equipment goes, it can be helpful to have a liquid measure, especially if you're filling a large pot and you don't want to carry the whole pot from the sink to the stove. Most of the time you don't need to know exact measurements for your water, but these are kind of a general purpose. Like if you need to take your wet fabric and set it somewhere, you can just put it in here. Aside from the dyes themselves, there are 3 essential ingredients you'll need for natural dyeing: delicate detergent, soda ash, and alum. Now, The detergent and the soda ash are for scouring the fabric. That means cleaning your fabric really well before you dye it. When you're choosing a detergent, you want to get something that is doesn't have like a lot of additives, so you don't want fragrances and optical brighteners basically. And also something that is pH neutral, especially for caring for your naturally dyed items later. Sometimes a strongly alkaline detergent can affect the color, and then if you're working with silk or wool, then they don't like alkaline. So a delicate detergent, this one is Eucalan, and it's really popular with fiber artists. Soda ash is also known as sodium carbonate. It's a laundry booster. It helps protect the detergent from hard water so that the detergent can do its job better. And your other ingredient is alum. Alum is a kind of a general purpose mordant. It's known for clear, bright colors, and the type you want to look for is potassium aluminum sulfate. There are different types of alum, and they're used for slightly different purposes, but I would start with potassium aluminum sulfate. And that's it for your basic ingredients, aside from the dye stuffs themselves. So perhaps the most mysterious thing when you're starting natural dyeing is, where do you get the dye? And that has a variety of answers, because there are so many plants and insects and minerals and things that produce color that that's just like such a big topic. But I think you'd be surprised what you can find in your gardens and orchards and herbal suppliers. So for instance, in the orchard, the leaves and twigs of apple, peach, plum, what else? Cherry, apricot. Those are all useful in dyeing. So if you know someone with an orchard, they might be happy for you to maybe help them with cleaning up the orchard a little bit, and you can use all those cuttings. Also, now this may be kind of an expensive way to go, but sometimes you can find chews, like twig chews for like rabbits and hamsters, and those are cuttings from orchard trees. They come in small quantities. Also, you can buy cherry bark from herbal suppliers because it has medicinal uses, and it also makes a delicious tea. Also, pomegranate skins are useful, and those you can buy through natural dye suppliers. That's something that's been used for a long time. Sometimes kitchen scraps, so avocado pits, avocado skins, onion skins. Those are just a couple of examples. And I'm trying to think, in the vegetable garden, artichoke leaves create a great bright yellow color. There are some flowers such as coreopsis, which have popular use for natural dyes because it's such a deep, strong color. Marigolds also, and that's such a common garden flower, and they're easy to grow. So really, the more you look, the more you find that you can use. There are some plants that require very unique processes, most notably indigo. So, not everything is going to work with your typical alum mordant, for instance, but most things probably will. As far as choosing materials to start dyeing in the beginning, I think cotton is just a really easy place to start. And the ingredients I've given you are are based on using cotton. So t-shirts and muslin are really accessible and inexpensive place to start. You want to make sure you're not getting synthetic materials because they don't accept natural dyes very well, if at all. So if you're not familiar with muslin, it's kind of looks like this. It's a medium weight woven fabric that is inexpensive. It's easy to craft with and sew, and any fabric store should have it. Blank cotton t-shirts, of course, are easy to come by, so those are great places to start. Sometimes you can get blank cotton like drawstring bags and backpacks. Those are fun to work with. White socks, as long as they're cotton, bandanas. So those are some ideas to start with. So as far as figuring out where to get things, I would say, first of all, check out my supplier list on my website, wendyastudio.com/supplies, and I have links there and suggestions if you want to know where to get like blank t-shirts or backpacks, that sort of thing, or if you're not sure where to get soda ash or alum, check out my links. And then as far as getting the equipment, check the secondhand market. There's no need really to have new stuff as long as it's not rusty. So thrift stores, yard sales, find out if your friends and family have old cook pots they don't want anymore. There's no reason to buy new or spend a lot on new equipment, especially if this is a new hobby. Well, thank you for spending a few minutes with me on this walk through supplies and equipment for natural dyeing. I hope I've portrayed this as something that's really accessible, because it is. And you know, when I first tried natural dyeing, it seemed really overwhelming because there's actually so much information and so many different plants you can use and different processes. But you can get started with some simple equipment, simple ingredients, and just a few dye plants, and grow from there. So welcome to this journey and this process, and I hope that you will explore it more.